going to feature 6 different decks across these rounds.
Right.
But I think a lot of people expect it to be a role player here. Not a huge surprise, just a good, solid deck.
Yeah, not something that really saw too much play in Expanded, but I think most players agreed coming in that it was going to be much more played this tournament than it was in Dallas. It's solid attack. Luster of Downfall doing 170 damage for just 1 energy attachment with Double Dragon Energy. I mean, doing 170 damage as a 1-prize Pokemon for 1 attachment is really, really strong.
Taking a look at both players' prizes here. Computer search there. Looks like that's for Matt.
Yeah, not a card you ever love to see prized. It's just a great consistency card, but it's not the worst thing in the world either. Once you take it out of your prize cards, and it does look like it is at the bottom of Matt's prizes, it's something that he can utilize mid to late game, which honestly could be even better for him than in the early game potentially.
Yeah, it doesn't look like anything backbreaking for either player, so here we go. We are off. It looks like Frank will be taking the first turn here.
Yeah, and Frank starting that Blacephalon from Cosmic Eclipse, just one of the many toolboxy cards that Frank has access to. Of course, that can attack for just 1 energy with a Dimension Valley in play when your opponent's at exactly 3 prize cards, letting you spread 12 damage counters through the rest of the game, letting you spread 4 however you would like. Something you can really utilize in other 1-prize matchups, and we saw Spell Tag over in his prizes. I think that Frank's deck is really going to aim to like spread damage around and take multiple prize turns potentially.
Yeah, something Kyle and I talked about when we were just talking about kind of toolbox decks earlier on camera was that you really have to be prepared to say, okay, like I need to select a certain number of Pokemon that will let me win, and I need to, in order to do that, I need to predict the metagame pretty well. I need to understand, okay, I'm going to play Blacephalon because I expect a lot of other 1-prize decks, and if you're right, which it seems like Frank and those guys have been, you'll be in a very good position, and if you're wrong, it can go really, really poorly for you. So one of the risks of playing this sort of toolbox type deck.
Yeah, and really cool on Frank's side, we actually see that Moltres, Zapdos, and Articuno hit the discard pile.
The second time we've seen it.
Yeah, in a totally different deck. And really a really unique way to utilize it here in this list. Frank is playing the Tapu Koko Prism Star, so he can get an energy accelerated onto it in that way. And then he has Counter Energy, which will provide the other 2 energy types. And then Dimension Valley gets rid of the colorless cost. So for just in 1 turn, you can power it up and start using that Moltres, Zapdos, and Articuno, either of its attacks, either the first attack or utilizing the GX attack to do 110 to 3 different Pokemon.
Yeah, so unlike the deck we saw it in earlier, it's this not exactly so all in on this kind of strategy. It's just one of the many options this toolbox deck has, but definitely a relevant one. We see the Mew you see on your screen now is, or you see on the bench now rather, is really what's going to power all this. It's what Pokemon you'll be attacking through, as we see a Dedenne for 6 fresh cards from Frank.
He's finding 6 cards here. Don't see any other key cards he can use on this turn. We do see the Cramorant hit the field though. And of course, not being able to play a supporter on the first turn, Dedenne becomes one of the strongest ways to still see a good amount of cards.
Yeah, format much more reliant on kind of quick ball into things like Shaman and Dedenne than it has been in the past.
Matt here, going to go ahead and play an Ultra Ball. Can start attacking on turn 1, could even take a knockout here right away if he's able to find a bunch of cards like the Silent Lab and Floatstone pieces like that. Silent Lab actually going to be probably a pretty key card in the matchup. Frank is going to have to bump that with a Dimension Valley if he wants to attack with Mew. Since Mew is a basic Pokemon, Memories of Dawn will be shut off by Silent Lab.
And of course, Frank, you know, these decks have to run the full 4-Dimension Valley, but still you get in this awkward situation where maybe you have to expose your Dimension Valley and then it gets bumped. And the Stadium Wars can be a pretty big back and forth here.
Yeah, and even like late game finding it off of an N or something like that. When you've already utilized several of them, that can be a big deal. Right away, Matt gonna get the Remoraid down.
Trying to build up a little draw engine with the Octillery. So I know that Frank's deck is kind of a brand new creation, and I know that we haven't seen a whole lot of Ultra Necrozma expanded. But just looking at this, you know, base level, what do you think about the matchup? Where do you think things are headed here?
Well, it is a 1-prizer mirror, so typically that would favor the player who takes the first prize, which we see Matt was unable to do, just having to go for a collect on the Grimer. But Frank's list is actually built in a way that he can take multiple prizes with something like the Blacephalon, with something like the Bird Trio. So really, realistically, I kind of would have to give the edge to Frank for that.
Yeah, it seems like Frank... it seems like he has the ability to go over the top of both the single prize and the multiple prize deck.
Frank could just win the game here. Does he have a second Moltres, Zapdos, Articuno? No, it doesn't look like it.
No, just running the single copy there, unfortunately. But yeah, that Tapu Koko, the Mew.
Yeah, if he, got that energy acceleration, found the Dimension Valley, I mean, if he finds a Rescue Stretcher, he definitely could still realistically do it here. There's a Sycamore.
7 fresh cards for Frank. Can't do. Is the bird trio going to be what we?
There's
the
Rescue
talk of
Stretcher
the-
in Valley. Does he have a Lightning Energy, though, in the discard pile? I think he's got it if he doesn't have the light, as long as he has a Lightning Energy.
Looks like Frank's considering his options. We do see that Dimension Valley. Looks like no, he's just going to go ahead and retreat up to the Mew.
Gonna go ahead and Spell Tag as well. This is a really cool card in the list, letting him spread some damage and really utilizes that, the ability to use things like Blacephalon later on in the game.
Yeah, the Spell Tag, the Mew interactions, you do things for such little resources here. As
Right.
as we see the beak catch from the Cramorant.
Yeah,
via
really
the Mew.
cool. Yeah, able to use it for free. It is a colorless attack, and with Dimension Valley in play, doesn't even need an energy attached. Just going to let him search his deck for up to 2 cards and putting them into his hand. This is going to let Frank set up some big plays moving forward.
Yeah, and remember, we just saw Matt, have to collect and pass last turn. He didn't really have much to put together, so his hands could still be just unplayable.
Frank eyeing up a teammate. I like taking this card just in case your opponent does find the pieces to get a knockout off of the collect or something like that. So we do see Silent Lab as well as an Ultra Ball and a Float Stone.
So Matt definitely has options here. It looks like he's going to decide what he wants to do with the Ultra Ball first. Rescue Stretcher and Sudowoodo going away.
Yes, we see the light counter package in Matt's list, being able to have the option to utilize something like Sudowoodo with counter energy. Not really going to be too relevant, I feel like, in this matchup. I guess using, copying Cramorant's attack to snipe some damage could be okay, but that would require 2 attachments to Sudowoodo and also require you to be behind on prizes. So not super likely we'll see that be relevant.
Yeah, not the match that's really in here for as we see that Ultra Ball get the Octillery. Going to see an Ultra Necrozma as well. So this turn's turned out much better for him. Much better for Matt. It seems like he's really starting to set things up the way he wants it to be.
Yeah, and I think those last 2 cards in hand are going to be the Float Stone and the Silent Lab. So it looks like actually 3 cards in hand. So he'll thin his hand down very, very low and draw a good amount with Abyssal Hand. And all he needs at this point is going to be that double Dragon Energy to start attacking.
Yep, there's the Float Stone. There's the Silent Lab. We just talked about how huge that was. Here's that Octillery. 5 cards.
No energy.
Not finding energy.
He doesn't even find a supporter.
Nope, just some Nest Ball. Another Silent Lab. Nothing that's really going to help him get that far this turn, unfortunately.
Yeah, really unfortunate start here from Matt. Not able to attack on either of these first 2 turns whenever your deck is really built to be able to start attacking every single turn. Just really unfortunate to see that whiff.
Yeah, just really no options here. Again, he'll have to try to reset things next turn, but these 2 turns have just been so slow.
Yeah. We might even just see another collect. I mean, that's probably his best attack to utilize this turn. Setting up a Alolan Muck, though, could be pretty huge since that would just turn off Mew for the rest of the game. That would force Frank to, attach to something like Cramorant manually over the course of 3 turns to take the knockout, or 2 turns with a double colorless energy.
And it looks like Matt ends up agreeing with you. He ends up retreating the Grimer, just kind of keeping it safe and promoting that Ultra Necrozma.
Frank, being aware of the looming threat of Alolan Muck, does go ahead and start to power up the Cramorant. And looks like he'll choose to just go ahead and use Beak Catch with the Cramorant as opposed to the Mew this time. Doesn't have the Stadium to bump the Silent Lab, so if he doesn't have a strong hand, that's his only option. And interesting that he chose not to take a Dimension Valley off of the Beak Catch last turn.
Yeah, I don't think that's a mistake he'll be making again this turn, although we do know that Matt does have the backup Silent Lab in hand. So just to really, both players not really gaining a lot of traction here. We thought after the first few kind of weaker turns by Matt that Frank would be able to get something together, but he didn't have the ability to go for that bird trio, and now he just has to, naturally promote the Cramorant attack.
Yeah, Frank was in a really close to winning the game position, honestly, on the first turn. Was really just missing one piece of the puzzle. Does only play a few Lightning Energies, so needs to find something like, Ultra Ball, Quick Ball to discard those pieces in order to even be able to utilize the Cocoa Prism, and was not quite able to do it.
Yeah, not quite. And we see what Matt can put together here. It's like a trainer's mail. Going to try to find, he really needs something that will allow him to find Dragon Energy, which it looks like he has.
Yeah, Guz Mahalla, the perfect piece to find there off of the Trainer's Mail, honestly. He'll be able to discard the 2 cards remaining in his hand, find that Stadium for the next turn, find the Double Dragon Energy for this turn, can even get himself a tool out of the deck, and then still use Abyssal Hand to refill his hand.
Yeah, so could not have asked for a better card there. Now we're going to actually see Matt's deck function how it was supposed to, how I assume it has over these past 7 rounds.
Does have to discard another Silent Lab, which you don't love seeing hit the discard pile, but at the cost of not attacking this turn, it's definitely much more worthwhile to go ahead and get yourself an attack.
Yeah, absolutely. You can also, again, always find another one, but again, that Stadium back and forth is so important that you hate to see that. But he has to advance his game plan here. See that Double Dragon Energy.
I wonder if he'll even take something like the other Silent Lab, since he can't play it right away. He might want to increase his chances as much as possible to find the Alolan Muck here off of Abyssal Hand, and we see he chooses not to take that other Stadium, wants to draw the full 5.
Yeah, heads up play by Matt for sure. Just not being worried about what might happen in the future. He knows that this Muck is so important to the game plan, and he does find it.
Yeah, is able to get there. The Fighting Fury Belt actually a pretty good card here for for Matt as well, meaning that, you know, it's more difficult for Frank to set up, you know, some shenanigans with the Fireworks Bomb, since it does give the Pokemon more HP. But that Muck, Power of Alchemy, is honestly just huge for this matchup.
Yeah, but basically before anything else can happen, Frank, he needs to deal with this Muck, which I guess he can snipe it with the Cramorant. He has some things he can do, but that's just it's going to disrupt his entire game plan.
A really important piece here is the Luster of Downfall does discard an energy from the Cramorant. Now, Frank not able to just attack this turn because it does require, you know, 2 attachments with double colorless plus 1 more colorless energy. And with his bench locked up as well.
Yeah, he just might be falling too far behind here.
Yeah, this is a tough spot, honestly. Cramorant does have 200 hit points, so able to tank a hit at least, but I mean, you can Beak Catch to set some stuff up. I mean, Frank has also had 2 turns of uninterrupted Beak Catch, but hasn't been able to do too much with them.
Yeah, still just hasn't been enough, unfortunately.
And I almost wonder if, like, you know, Frank just kind of made the wrong call off of the Beak Catch, thinking like his opponent was going to go one way, and then like we saw him take the teammates the first turn, his opponent didn't get a knockout.
Right.
And then that meant that Frank's next turn was weak because he, you know, spent one of those 2 cards finding a teammates.
And he does have the Dimension Valley now, but not exactly going to work out great for him.
Here comes the Quick Ball. I don't think, yeah, Frank does play the 1 copy of Stealthy Hood, which could be useful on one of these Mews. So if he can find that and throw it down to this benched Mew that doesn't have a tool on it already and find a way to move the Cramorant, then we could see him take, you know, Beak Shot, just knock out this Alolan Muck right away.
But no, he just takes the Bird Trio and passes, it looks like. And we're back to Matt, and wow, Matt had such a bad start, didn't really do anything at all, and Frank could not capitalize, and now is just being locked on because of this Muck.
And we will see that Frank has had a couple of turns to build up a pretty good-sized hand, so this is the perfect time to be playing an in, right? Whenever your opponent, when you're about to be taking a 2-prize knockout, you're still going to get the full effect, finding 6 cards, and you know you're disrupting the Beak Catch from your opponent.
Yeah, absolutely. Six fresh cards for each player, and I think Matt just needs to keep pressing this advantage here. Frank is going to need to put a lot together. Of course, you know, both players are still at 6 prizes. There's still a lot of game left to be played, but unfortunately, Frank just has such a hard time executing his game plan as long as that Muck is on the board.
Yeah, I mean, we did talk about how, you know, Frank does have a little bit more, you know, play around potential with his list, you know, being able to spread damage with things like the spell tags, but Field Blower, a pretty big card, gets rid of a spell tag, and Matt choosing to leave the float. Oh, no, he does get rid of the Dimension Valley there.
Yeah, just leaving the Float Stone. Can't really do much about that.
Yeah.
And there's a knockout. No more Cramorant. Float Stone does allow Frank to have a free retreat here, but he already has that in the Mew, so it's not really doing anything.
I think we're going to need to see Frank find that Stealthy Hood he plays. That's going to be pretty important for him here. He does have the one Guz Mahalla, so that's a way he could find it.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't see how he can really interact without that Stealthy Hood.
a really important card for Frank's deck is Teammates. We saw him take it earlier on in the game, but wasn't able to get it into the discard pile. So just has to go for Sycamore here, where normally using Teammates to find the specific cards would have been put him in a much better spot. Frank not really sure.
Yeah, it looks like his body language is just a lot of frustration, really unsure what to do to kind of get ahead here.
You can use Watch and Learn with Sudowoodo. This will pick up the KO. Normally, Sudowoodo included to knock out things like Snorlax VMAX, but comes up pretty big here in this matchup, taking out the Ultra Necrozma.
And we do see the knockout here. Alolan Muck becomes active on Matt's side. Matt with a computer search in hand. Seems like his hand is totally fine to be able to respond here. Just needs to, again, not expose that Alolan Muck. Just kind of try to keep Frank off of Stealthyhood or a way of dealing with the Muck for as long as possible. And hopefully just grind out the rest of this game.
Yeah, it does have that computer search. We saw it prized. He was able to take it, so perfect time, honestly, to find it. And also has Teammates, going to choose to discard it, but that is a great, card that he could utilize this turn.
We also talked a little bit about how both of these decks are playing single prize attackers and kind of initiating a prize trade, but of course that Cramorant is a V, it is worth 2 prizes. So Matt is not only ahead on the board, kind of locking Frank out, but also ahead on prizes, so he has a little bit of room to give if something goes wrong.
Frank has left only, just the Dedenne in play, so I guess something that Matt could try to do would be playing around the Fireworks Bomb turn from Frank by finding a Guzma or something on Dedenne here. And he does eye up the Great Catcher. That's exactly what he's opting for. This means that Frank won't get that extra damage spread with Fireworks Bomb. So really a great scenario.
Yeah, great place to be if you're Matt. Frank knows exactly what's going on here. Matt's playing very well, just kind of realizing that he's ahead, but he can't afford to make any mistakes still.
He does find, still has a VS Seeker in his hand, has not played a supporter yet, so we could see him grab that Teammates back that he discarded earlier on if he wants to utilize that. I think just getting another Ultra Necrozma down, putting an energy on it could be good, making yourself a little more in-proof later on in the game. Of course, Octillery already does a great job of that, but yeah.
A stream of attackers is just important here. This is something you'll see with these one prize decks is that they're not so much in this situation exactly, but you'll see their attackers getting knocked out back and forth, and it can often be the first person to, no, I didn't find my attacker. I just have to pass. That actually just loses the game for them.
Silent Lab could be a big card here for Matt as well, but it looks like he is going to opt for VS Seeker.
And what cards will he find here? Again, I think he just needs to up his consistency. Again, like you said earlier, make himself a little bit more end-proof.
Yeah, could even find like Nest Ball, since that's a card you wouldn't want to draw, as opposed to just getting the Ultra Necrozma. If you just get Nest Ball, that takes that 2 cards out of the deck effectively.
Right, thinning your deck as much as possible, taking out all the cards you don't want to draw, so that if things go wrong for you, you can have the highest percentage of drawing live cards that will actually win you the game.
Actually opts for a VS Seeker as well, so setting himself up for the future turns. So if Frank doesn't play an in, he knows he's got Teammates on the next turn.
He has a Double Dragon too, removes the Dimension Valley.
And I think getting Silent Lab here is actually really big. Frank has played a couple of Dimension Valleys, and that Silent Lab does, Stealthyhood does not prevent Silent Lab, right? It would prevent the Muck, but now Frank needs to find not only Stealthyhood, but also the counter to the Silent Lab in order to attack with a Mew.
And so Matt really just burying Frank here, saying, okay, you have your deck's great. You have, clearly been successful. The Mews are, powered up and strong, but you just can't really act unless you deal with multiple things here.
Target Whistle, a pretty cute card we've seen a lot of this weekend. Sudowoodo, not something that's going to be useful for Matt, so Frank just wants to clog the bench as much as possible, I think, here.
And another Spell Tag on the Mew for Frank. There's the Bird Trio hitting the bench.
Not quite sure if he wants to put it down yet. He's got a Sycamore in hand, and I believe he's already used Rescue Stretcher, so by putting it in the discard pile, I don't think he's going to have access to it the rest of the game.
Ultimately decides not to bench it, just play the Sycamore, 7 new cards. You did see a Cramorant, a bunch of energies in there, but I'm not sure if there's anything that really gets him out of this position. Did draw the Dimension Valley.
Yeah, Dimension Valley could be useful here. And looks like he'll just opt to put a Cramorant down and go ahead and start getting the energy on it for the future turns. Watch and Learn still able to pick up the knockout, but now he's in a situation where one more energy attachment can take out the Alolan Muck, and he can have access to his Muse later on.
Looks like he did draw the Stealthy Hood off the prizes too.
Ooh.
Off the prize, rather.
It was prized, so that's why we haven't seen it from him yet, and that's going to be good for him moving forward.
And action's back on Matt now, of course. Ultra Necrozma did go down. He has another one with the Double Dragon Energy already ready to go. A lot of options in his hand versus Seeker, a bunch of supporters. The world is kind of his oyster here.
He's got a Guzma here, and I feel like using Guzma to take the energy off of the Cramorant could be huge, honestly. Getting rid of this double colorless energy makes it much more difficult for Frank to get off a relevant attack on the next turn, and makes it so that your Muck is much more likely to be safe.
Yeah, that kind of has to be the name of the game still, even though we know it's in Frank's hand. We know what he's working with here. You have to, if you're Matt, you just have to try to, again, protect this Silent Lab, protect this Mug, do everything you can to ensure that your game plan is uninterrupted. We see a Teammates here. I didn't quite see what he grabbed, but Teammates a really relevant card in these kind of back and forth consistent knockout decks.
Yeah, and Matt did something really smart last turn by teammatesing for a VS Seeker, giving himself the option to continue to chain teammates turn after turn, really heads up and lets him just continue the stream of attackers, like you said, and does go ahead and get an Ultra Necrozma with an energy, leaving himself 2 attackers, which should line up his 2 prizes he needs to win the game.
Yeah, very clean, tight play here. Just not, Matt has had the game plan going in. He executed it perfectly, and that's leaves him with a single prize left versus Frank's 4.
And Frank is in a tough spot, and yeah, we will just see the concession. I mean, he could bring up Cramorant, get an energy on it, take a snipe knockout on one of these benched Pokemon, and then combine it with an N and hope that's enough. But even then, I think this is a situation where you just have to accept, I'm probably going to lose this game. My best play here is to concede and hope that I can win a game 2 and 3.
Yeah, and the unfortunate thing for Frank there, besides just straight up losing the game, is that he was never, I think, until that last turn in a position where he should have conceded. A lot of times you'll see players, maybe Frank should have conceded 10 minutes ago to save time. But with him just needing to kind of put together I need an energy, I need to draw a Hood, I need to draw Dimension Valley, whatever. He's always just like a turn or 2 away from swinging things back in his direction. And so unfortunately for Frank, Matt takes the first game, and there's still a lot of time left in the round, but things did not go well for Frank. One thing about Frank, he's a long-time player, very successful player, always is coming up with new innovative decks, and there's kind of this constant running joke about other players will succeed with his deck. He'll come up with something, and he'll lose his win and in, and his friend will win the entire tournament.
Right, and we saw that same thing happen in Dallas, right? Hunter Butler was very quick to give credit to Frank for the success that he found in Dallas, winning with his Roxy Chomp deck in the expanded format. Really a new and innovative deck that Frank was kind of the mastermind behind. Hunter was able to take it to a first place victory. I believe Hunter is actually playing this same deck as well this weekend, so the same kind of crew coming together and finding these unique, really fun and cool strategies. And now Frank here in a position where he can win, get himself into day 2, and hopefully make a deep run.
Yeah, Frank is trying to put together a run here, but of course Matt is just a little bit closer as he won game 1 and just needs to win 1 more game throughout this match to make day 2. So it might, the curse might still be on Frank. Can he actually get there? He does have a little bit of work to do.
In Frank's prizes, we actually saw the Eviltal GX, a really interesting inclusion with a spell tag. After a knockout, you can use that to pick up a clean 1-hit KO on something like a Morpeko VMAX or Snorlax VMAX, one of these big 3-prize Pokemon. Not something I'm sure we'll see in this matchup, but a really unique inclusion in the list as well.
Yeah, just a great way to be able to say, okay, whatever it is, I'm taking this knockout here. Maybe I don't have the right cards to put things together exactly how I want them to be, but I can just immediately respond. And Frank is just a great player, a great deck builder. I mean, Matt is clearly playing. Played really tight in that match. It's just a great back and forth match, and whoever wins it will be a welcome addition to day 2 here in Collinsville.
Absolutely. And we actually saw a situation in that first game where Matt used Collect on turn 1 with Alolan Grimer, and that was a really big opening looking back at things for Frank to capitalize, take a knockout, deal with that Grimer before it has the chance to become a Muck. right away, I think Matt realized the importance of Alolan Muck by retreating it on the next turn, not using Collect the second time. But kind of a situation where, you know, Frank didn't get rewarded by his opponent going for that play and missed the knockout, and then Matt was able to just capitalize and sweep through the game.
Well, it's really important on Matt's side of that to not get discouraged, you know, not go on tilt, as they say, and just be like, okay, well, I have to collect on turn 1. I'm probably going to lose, but if things go right and Frank misses and the top of my deck is nice to me, I'm going to win, and that's what happened. And so it's really important to just kind of play tight and make sure that you're not giving up any value.
So I believe we did see 3 mulligans on Matt's side, so Frank will get 3 additional cards to start this game. Really big difference between starting the game with 6 cards in hand and 9 cards. It's going to leave a lot more options. And once again, computer searching the prizes.
All right, and we are off now. Looks like Sudowoodo is facing down a Cramorant. Matt is going first.
Yeah, so interesting choice here. Frank chose to go second, and I think that kind of what we've talked about in these one prize matchups, getting the first knockout is huge. And, Matt's able to slow Frank down potentially with a Silent Lab, but looks like Frank's already got the answer to it.
Yeah, and that was Matt's only play as well. Just Silent Lab pass, of course, cannot play supporter due to the new first turn rule. Doesn't have any energy. Do see he has an Octillery in hand for next turn, but now we're on Frank. He has a Cramorant. He has the Guzman Hall, it looks like. Coming down here, trying to decide what to discard.
Yeah, this will get him that Dimension Valley, so he can bump the Silent Lab. Also can find him like a Float Stone if he wants to move this active Cramorant, or a Spell Tag if he wants to throw it down onto a Mew. I'm not sure if he had an attacker in his hand, though, so we'll have to see if he has like a Quick Ball or just one of the Mews in his hand to start attacking right away.
Yeah, Frank taking advantage of being able to, he's going second, he can play a supporter, he can potentially get a knockout. We do see the combination of Spell Tag, Dimension Valley, and double colorless energy. Getting rid of this Silent Lab will be huge. We saw a lot of tension around that in the first game. And there's a lot more where that came from, but being kind of one up on the trade there, we do see that Quick Ball that you mentioned. So now Frank will be able to find an attacker and kind of just build up his board how he wants.
Yeah, and I did see the Float Stone in his hand as well, so Cramorant can get moved to the bench, and right away we'll see a Spit Shot taking a knockout, and Frank will be awarded with the first prize of this game. Already so much better of a start, and I feel like he's got to target down that Remoraid here.
Yeah, I think when your opponent just does nothing in pass, obviously they could just have a supporter, and that's tough for you. But I think getting rid of, traditionally the kind of line of play would be getting rid of the support Pokemon here. And it looks like that is what Frank is going to do. He realizes it, he takes the first prize, the first knockout, and things are going exactly how he wanted, essentially.
Matt here is going to draw for turn. Looks like he does have a supporter. He's got the Nest Ball in hand at least, so he can get another Pokemon out. But yeah, it's like one of the situations, like you said, you don't know if your opponent truly does have a bad hand or if just the new supporter rule kind of messed him up.
Yeah, it looks like Guzman and Hala is coming down that Octillery, so Matt did have the Octillery to evolve in and kind of start drawing cards for this turn, but unfortunately that Remoraid is no more, and the Field Blower goes away. Field Blower card we saw become relevant last time.
Yeah, Guzmahala here going to find exactly what Frank needs. Gets him that Float Stone to move this active Pokemon. Silent Lab will turn off the ability from Ultra Necrozma, and Double Dragon provides the energy needed. These 3 cards here, perfect. Exactly what he wants to find. Yeah,
just Guzman Hall has just been so strong. I mean, it's a strong card in general, but this weekend, especially these past few rounds, we've seen it just do so much work for all of these players.
And that Spit Shot taking the knockout on Remoraid becomes much more impactful now as well, because as we see, Matt had the Octillery. If he was able to Guzman Hala and fill his hand back up with Abyssal Hand, he'd be in a really solid spot. As it is, though, I think he's got this Nest Ball and a VS Seeker and no other supporters in his discard pile besides Guzman Hala.
Yeah, he's basically just kind of resetting things, I guess. He's just saying, I'm getting rid of your Dimension Valley. I'm kind of trying to lock you out again, but he's not really making a ton of headway.
Sure.
We do see the Nest Ball come down. And I find that Grimer.
Yeah, I think another interesting choice here from Matt was discarding the Octillery as opposed to like the VS Seeker in his hand. If he keeps the Octillery and can Nest Ball for second Remoraid here potentially, that means on the next turn he can draw with Abyssal Hand. But I actually think, looking in his prizes, that that second Remoraid could have definitely been prized. And so leaving himself the option, and he will get a prize here from this knockout.
And we do see Double Dragon, Silent Lab. There's the attack, there's the prize. And again, Frank, left with a without much on the board. He needs to get rid of the Silent Lab in order to kind of make any headway. Just a really, really back and forth engagements, even if a lot is not really happening from either player's side.
Yeah, I think, Frank almost benches Tapu Lele. Can't utilize that right now with Silent Lab in play. But I think, Guzma Hala is kind of a double-edged sword, right? It's great. It finds you exact pieces you need. Oh, Frank actually can't utilize that Tapu Lele.
Yeah, it looks like, wow, like he just missed that a bit. I'm sure it was just a mistake by Frank, but
yeah,
unfortunately commits that Tapu Lele to the board as well, so now it's just kind of stuck there doing nothing.
Yeah, once it's been benched, there it is. Don't get to utilize that ability. I mean, he can energy drive, I guess, but...
yeah, not exactly where he wants to be.
Yeah, tough spot.
Looks like Frank considering what to do now. Looks like players having a conversation with the judge, just kind of saying, yeah, I didn't know.
Yeah.
I just forgot. Not trying to gain an edge or anything like that, I'd expect. Maybe a penalty assessed. I'm not really sure how that works, but I know it's like Frank saw some of the cards.
Yeah.
I'm sure the judges will handle this swiftly.
Yeah, he was in the process of a deck search. He hadn't even shuffled his deck from the last search, so I don't think that any penalty would be awarded in this instance, but certainly a warning potentially could come out. And
it looks like we're just going to go ahead and continue play here. Versa Seeker finds Guzma Hala, getting rid of Counter Energy and Yveltal. And now again, we're seeing that kind of, we need to keep streaming these Guzma Halas in order to find the stadiums, in order to find the energy, and kind of who will blink first.
Yeah, and Spit Shot here should be targeting that Alolan Grimer. I think Frank wants to deal with that before Alolan Muck becomes a threat. And so already a much better position, but this is kind of what I was saying before the issue with the Lele came up, is that Guzma Hala, while it finds you exact pieces when you need it, it really doesn't advance your board state in any way. Like you don't increase your hand size with something like a Sycamore.
Right.
You don't get to find exact pieces with teammates to set up for next turn. You're limited to what you can find.
Right, exactly. It does look like Frank got a 2 prize card penalty for that illegal search. Again, he did look at, he saw cards in his deck. Don't think it was intentional, but that was the ruling, just so we can follow along at home as we go to Matt's turn now. After, again, as you accurately predicted, that Grimer is gone.
And Matt's left with a pretty weak hand. We know he has that VS Seeker. Oh, wait, no, is there a Juniper there?
I can't quite make out the cards in Matt's hand.
He's kind of torn on what to do, I think. He's got Special Charge in hand.
He does have the Juniper.
Yeah, and so I think he's in a situation where he's like, should I just Guzma and Hala and get myself guaranteed pieces, find the stadium? He could actually just use Guzma Hala for the first effect, doesn't even have to, discard cards.
Right.
Could just guarantee himself the Silent Lab so that he can get off the attack this turn. Because now things are different for Matt, right? You hate to see a prize penalty at any point in the game, but it's how it happened, and now Matt needs to take 2 less prizes. His game plan definitely can change from this.
Yeah, so again, Matt's, just so you can see on your screen, Matt's prizes are still out. He doesn't get to take prizes. He just needs to take 2 fewer to win the game. And so like you said, that changes so much. We've been talking about the prize trade all match, and now it's just completely different. And he does decide to go for kind of the more conservative play and say, you know what, I can Juniper next turn. For now, I just want to try and shut you down and take these prizes quickly.
And does hang on to the Juniper by doing this, like you said. Finding that stadium is really the only piece he needed this turn to get a knockout, so it's going to work out perfectly.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been impressed with Matt's kind of consistent sort of conservative play throughout this entire match.
What was Frank's draw for turn? He's just going to attach to Cramorant here. If he has to just use Beak Catch, that's so slow, and with the prize penalty, it's going to put him in a really tough spot.
Yeah, I don't really think he has much going on. He just immediately attaches, uses Beat Catch, thinks for maybe half a second, and then just has to do it here. And if you're Matt, you have to be so excited. You only need to take 2 more prizes, 1 more big knockout on any of these Vs or GXs, and it's over.
Yeah, and it's such a frustrating misstep from Frank as well, because he did have Guzma Hala with the VS Seeker. I think maybe he just kind of missequenced. He knew what he wanted to do. He knew he wanted to use Guzma Hala, find the pieces, bump the stadium, use the Lele before his opponent could counter the stadium once again. And he just kind of got a little mixed up and a little out of order.
Yeah, that can definitely happen. That's something. I mean, I don't think that Frank was trying to gain any advantage. Clearly,
oh sure,
he's on camera. He knows what his opponent knows what's up. He just it's so easy to just kind of miss sequence what you're doing, play the wrong card, and suddenly the game shifts entirely.
So Frank with just a beak catch, finding 2 cards. Matt gonna have another turn to just kind of push his advantage here. With only 2 prizes left, all he has to do is knock out... Oh, wait, he should just have game, right?
Yeah, it looks like he has the computer search.
Yeah, all he needs is a Guzma here.
And I have
Or to find, like, a great catcher off the Juniper.
I couldn't see what he ended up computer searching for, but I know he did get rid of the Juniper off the computer search, it looks like.
Yep, with just... I mean, maybe kind of just a unsure situation. And he is going to go ahead and Field Blower away that Floatstone. And Juniper, having a second one in hand, will draw him more cards. Let's see. Does he find a great catcher, though?
He does not.
Looks like a
trainer's mails.
And finds himself a couple of cards. No great catcher, though. Looks like a Nest Ball could be a good option here. Just get another Necrozma in play. Or even Stretcher could do that.
Looks like he's just trying to stream maybe a slight misstep here from Matt, but just didn't see the play and is now just trying to set up for future turns again, just 1 knockout away from taking this game and this match.
Yeah, and with an Ultra Ball in hand, maybe we'll see him go grab the Remoraid to try to set himself up with some more consistent draw through the game. And, of course, Luster of Downfall will discard this double color synergy, like we mentioned, so Beak Shot not going to be a huge threat from Frank.
That's the Ultra Ball. And take the Remoraid, as you said, to shuffle it back in off of the Rescue Stretcher.
Yeah, and this is, going to make him, improve something like that if, Frank tried to disrupt his hand. Ooh, opts for the Grimer.
Okay, maybe trying to play a little bit of a longer game. Again, the Alolan Muck Silent Lab is just kind of not a hard lock because Frank can get out of it, but it's a very tough lock for Frank to get around. But
right.
I got to imagine the Remoraid there just would have been a little bit safer of a play. I'm not sure how I'm not sure if this game is going to go very long, although maybe Matt just wants to say, okay, if things go horribly wrong for me, I still have an advantage here.
Sure. 170 damage onto Cramorant. Energy has been discarded. And, I mean, Frank, he's got to play it out, right? I mean, he's in a situation where if he loses, he loses the match. So you got to play it out and just hope for something to go your way. But he is in such a tough spot. And it looks like he might just have to commit energy to retreating this turn. So he's going to need to find, like, a Dimension Valley to use Beak Catch with one of these Mews.
Yeah, well, so that's what he did. He just attached. He played the Sycamore. He did find the Dimension Valley. Didn't quite get a look at what else was in his hand. But, yeah, Frank things not coming together for Frank this match, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I mean, he has the Stealthy Hood in hand. Not something he can utilize right now, but that could be good moving forward if Matt does find the Alolan Muck. But, I mean, yeah, all Matt needs to close this out is going to be a Guzma or Great Catcher.
And we do see, again, we talked a little bit how Matt, using kind of in the early turns, not having a great hand, using Collect, just kind of trying to stay focused on whatever potential you have to win. This is even 10 times more true for Frank here, as he's very, very close to losing, but still has to think about it, play correctly, and just play to that, 2%, 5%, 10%, whatever happens to be chance that you can actually pull off this game.
Yeah, and that's something that separates, good players from great players. Even if you're in such a bad spot, being able to identify those, even 0.5% lines that could eventually win you the game, you've got to play to that. And, maybe something will go your way. Like, there's always a chance, right? And, if you're telling Frank there's a chance, he's going to stick in it and see if he can find the lines to get the win.
And he's taking a lot of time here just considering, what exactly do I want? Again, there's only a few, combinations of cards that can actually get me out of this, so I need to just take these cards, cross my fingers, and hope that it's not all over for me.
And finding 2 cards, Matt does draw a Trainer's Mail.
Immediately plays a Silent Lab to get rid of that Dimension Valley.
Let's see if this can find a Guzma. It does not.
Does not find Double Dragon, 2 Octillery, and a Rescue Stretcher. Neither of those cards going to really do anything for him here.
Yeah, maybe could take the Rescue Stretcher just to not draw it if he wants to, like, push his advantage here, take a prize, knows that maybe the Rescue Stretcher is not going to matter too much moving forward in the game, but opts to just go ahead and put it back in the deck.
Yeah, not even bothering to take it here, just saying I'm so close. I just needed that rescue stretcher to find something relevant.
And I think with a VS Seeker as his last card in hand, we'll likely just see another Juniper, discarding the hand to fill it up to 7.
You have to imagine that this is the plan at this point. There's a Versus Seeker. Going to go ahead and show Frank the Juniper. And draw a fresh 7 cards.
Yeah, no high five from either of the players. We won't hold it against them, though.
Yeah, we're not exactly at that stage, unfortunately.
Yeah, I guess so. Considering the situation, that's fair. Alolan Muck, though, is a pretty big find. That's going to shut down the Memories of Dawn ability on the Muse. And that's just even more Frank has to deal with.
Double Dragon Energy, ensuring that Matt can kind of stream these Ultra Necrozmas.
Ooh, great catcher actually in the prizes for Matt, so not able to find it. And, I mean, Matt only needs one more prize to win the game. I don't know what Frank can do.
Yeah, this is very likely the last turn that Frank will be able to play here. Just one more prize, and it's all over.
Yeah, there's no, like, Enhanced Hammer in his list. Maybe if he went Enhanced Hammer plus, you know, knock out the active plus N, he could make something happen, but
yeah,
he just doesn't even have that option.
Yeah, I mean, this deck has a lot of options. You know, Frank is an amazing player. I'm not going to call it now, but I'm not sure. I think he just might be too far behind. I'm not sure what he can put together here. Especially with 5 prizes remaining. You know, it's not just like he has to survive through this turn. He has to actually make relevant plays and not lose a single Pokemon for the rest of the game.
Yeah. I mean, Matt is at exactly 3 prize cards remaining, so Fireworks Bomb is active, but that can only deal with one of these Pokemon.
And it looks like it just, I can't quite make out the cards in Frank's hand, but I'm afraid it's not going to be enough. It looks like he did draw the Blacephalon.
I mean, does he have anything in his list that can, like, paralyze the active? I don't think so. Like, maybe he could, you know, go for multiple heads maybe, but it's just really not going to come together here for Frank, I don't think. He's got the counter energy plus Blacephalon, so that's a play he's got available to him. And also, Dowsing Machine does open up his options as far as what's in his discard pile.
And you can see Frank really thinking through this. Just, you know, he's got to know that he's not in a great spot. He's got to know that things are kind of hanging on a very, very loose thread here. But again, going to try to play as tight as he can. Going to try to make the right decisions. It's just really a question of whether there is a play he can make that will leave him, you know, not just game on board for Matt.
Right. I mean, he does find the Dimension Valley, so he needed that piece to be able to attack this turn. He does have Stealthy Hood, which does block Mew from being affected by Power of Alchemy. Needed to find the Stadium here so that he could replace Silent Lab, because Stealthy Hood does not prevent that.
Yeah, so that's step 1 for Frank.
He's got a counter energy in hand. Could use Fireworks Bomb with the Mew or the Blacephalon, either one at this point. Spread 12 damage counters however he would like. I mean, maybe if he could have combined this with, like, a Guzma, brought up the Muck, but yeah. Oh, okay, so here's an out. Frank takes out this Muck. Now Matt needs to find a Silent Lab.
So Muck down.
There's a Teammates in his hand. I don't know. It depends on how many Silent Labs Matt has gone through at this point. He did have to discard one earlier on with a Guzma and Hala. And I mean, wait, this could be it, though. If Frank can get multiple turns of Fireworks Bomb off. Of course, the ability here on the Necrozma is what is preventing Matt from just being able to attack for the win. Its ability reads that as long as your opponent has more than 2 prize cards, this Pokemon can't attack. The Ultra Burst ability, as we see there on screen. So with Frank being at 4, that can't attack yet. And Matt might be down a lot of those resources.
Yeah, Frank might be piecing something together here.
I mean, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. There are 4 Silent Labs in the discard pile, as well as that Dowsing Machine. Wait, I think Frank has found a way.
No more access to Silent Lab here.
Wait, no. I think Frank just wins this ultimately. As long as he doesn't take a prize and activate counter energy, Frank can just spread damage with Fireworks Bomb and then eventually take, you know, 4 knockouts in one turn.
Just get to a point where he's spreading without actually taking the knockouts until the final turn.
I think Frank may have found the line here. We were almost counting it out, and like we said, that 0.5% play, Frank found the line, and he's put himself in a position here where this is not over.
Yeah, this is not over at all. We do see a Teammates from Matt. Did not quite see what was taken there. But we'll see if this Matt can actually put things together here. He does take the counter energy, so he's kind of saying, okay, I know if I'm going to win this game, it's going to be through that counter energy. But yeah, he just has to pass back.
Oh my gosh, and all Frank needs to do is not take a prize. He needs to spread damage around with Fireworks Bomb and set it up to where he takes all 4 of these remaining prizes in one turn. He could definitely lose the game still if he was to, like, you know, take a knockout here and take a knockout on the next turn, giving your opponent... Oh, he does take out the Rim Raid here. I guess as long as you don't go behind on prizes, this is okay. But you don't ever want to give your opponent an out to counter energy.
Right, so there's a knockout 60 on the Sudowoodo. Frank crawling back here. Only 3 prizes remaining.
This will mean Frank needs to find a different energy to attack with the Mew next turn. Needs to find either a Prism or something like that. Yeah, it would have to be a one of his 2 Prism energies in order to attack with Fireworks Bomb, since counter is now just a colorless energy since these players are tied on prizes. And Matt just has to pass.
All right, wow, this Frank really turned this around here. He found the Blacephalon, saw the play, just realized what he needed to do. I gotta believe he has access to the Prism energy if he put himself in that position.
Yeah, we will see Quick Ball. There's 1 in the deck, at least 1. I think there is 2 in the deck, so he needs to find it here off of something like a Sycamore, or if he has like a Guzma and Hala in hand, that can find the piece right away.
Decides to go for a Tapu Koko Prism Star.
I mean, honestly, like, this is a situation where, I mean, Frank can't attack right now. We need to make sure we catch that because he is not behind on prizes anymore.
Yeah, things are actually tied up.
Matt's going to go ahead and concede that game. I think Frank, ultimately would win the game by just I mean, I think he did have a Via Seeker in his hand and Guzma Hall in the discard pile, so he did just need to find that Prism energy.
Yeah.
But a situation where Frank was ultimately going to win the game.
Yeah, so wow, that was quite a back and forth game. There we really did not think Frank had many outs, but he actually found it. He did turn off the Ultra Necrozma and was able to take the game eventually. So again, Frank could not attack that last turn because of the counter energy. Things are tied on prizes, but it didn't actually ultimately end up mattering. Matt couldn't really make any headway either, and we are tied 1-1.
Yeah, what a game. I mean, Frank, it seemed like things were just going terribly for him. He lost game number 1. Game number 2, he gets that prize penalty. His opponent only needs to take 1 more prize to win the game. But Frank, taking note of those resources already used, saw all 4 dimension values were in the discard pile. Or excuse me, Silent Labs, saw that the dowsing machine was down already and found the line, stuck his dimension valley in play, and knew that his opponent did not have a counter stadium. And as long as Muck was able to stay out of play, Frank was going to be able to win.
And regardless of what deck you're rooting for, what player you're rooting for, whatever, it's great to see that prize penalty will ultimately not come up. I'm sure it was not intentional by Frank, and I'm glad that it didn't cost anyone a game, and we're just getting to see kind of, good old-fashioned back-and-forth Pokemon to determine who makes it into day 2 here in Collinsville.
So an interesting thing here is going to be Matt gets to choose. Does he want to go first or second? We saw Frank lost game 1 and chose to go second. Do you think Matt would opt for the same type of strategy?
I think it just really depends. It looks like he is choosing to go second. Yeah, Frank is going first.
Yeah, and I think that just kind of speaks to what we were talking about with the prize trade, these single prize matchups. Players really wanting to capitalize as quickly as possible by attacking on turn 1. But in Matt's prizes, we actually did see 2 Silent Labs.
Yeah, I was going to mention we do see two Silent Labs. So if this game ends up going along, if this game ends up being a grind fest, it will, unfortunately. Matt will not have that advantage. However, there are only 2 minutes left. I do believe players have a minute time extension as well due to the penalty that was assessed, that the judges have to take some time and talk, and we wouldn't want to penalize players for that. But it's going to be tough for either player to really finish here, although we could see some big explosive bird trio play from Frank like we almost saw in game 1.
Yeah, I mean, and that's probably going to be it. Frank didn't get an energy attachment this turn, so that makes it a little more difficult, but if he's behind on prizes, we know that's a play that he can pull off in 1 turn.
And so we see Ultra Necrozma is the starter here for Matt, and we see a Nest Ball get the Remoraid. Kind of the classic play here. You just really want to make sure you have those Remoraids to turn to Octilleries later in the game. Hope Frank does not knock them out as he did in game 2, and that's kind of the Octillery engine is what kind of just makes you be able to play the game and be consistent throughout.
Matt does have the Silent Lab in hand. That is huge. After prizing 2, still able to find one in his opening hand, exactly what he wanted to see. Looks like he did have the Guzma Hala, so he would have had that option still regardless to find the stadium, but this means that he's able to play Juniper for turn and hopefully find himself more Pokemon so that he doesn't risk, getting knocked out immediately by a bird trio.
There's a second Ultra Necrozma, just again setting up that stream of attackers we've been talking about all game. Another Nest Ball. So things, I mean, time issues notwithstanding, things are going well for Matt. This is kind of the setup that he wants to see early in the game here.
Yeah, and I feel like if time is called in, this turn or next turn, things will likely end in a tie for us, which wouldn't necessarily eliminate either player. They can still, get a win in their 9th round in order to make it into day 2.
Yeah, absolutely. There's, obviously one player just wants to win here. They want to lock it up and make day 2. Tie would not be the worst thing in the world. It's not what other player wants to see, but unfortunately, I think they're both in a position where they just have to accept it. Okay, yeah, we're going to tie. Looks like time is down to 20 seconds. It will expire on Frank's turn, I would imagine, as he does have plays to make. And both of these players, of course, they are aware. They're not aware of the exact time, but they are aware that time is ticking down. They got to imagine it's going to be pretty soon.
Yeah, and Frank could actually, potentially set this up to where if Matt doesn't find another benched Pokemon next turn, he can try to go for that, bird trio play by sweeping his board. And, that's something Matt needs to be mindful of. And Frank, once again...
Oh, no, the Tapu Lele.
He puts the Lele down.
Keeps getting punished by the Tapu Lele.
Silent Lab, meaning these basic Pokemon don't have abilities. Frank does have a Sycamore in hand, so he'll still have that option at least, but you got to think he wanted a Guzma Hollow there in order to guarantee his stadium, guarantee his attachment.
And stadiums are these sort of things that they matter so much. Obviously, in this matchup, it's been kind of what we've been talking about the entire matchup, but they kind of exist, off to the side. It's very easy to just forget about it for 1 second and just accidentally, leave yourself with a Tapu Lele that did nothing on the board.
We've all been there. We've all done that. I've definitely tried to use setup many times under Wobbuffet or Silent Lab. Like, it happens, and especially in these high pressure situations, being on stream, knowing that if you win this game, you're into day 2.
Well, especially right now, trying to play so quickly too, as it looks like time is just going to expire right now. You're just trying to play as quickly as possible, and some things get lost in the shortcut.
Yeah, and I think time was just called. Frank will be turn 0, meaning Matt will be turn 1, Frank turn 2, and Matt turn 3. So each player, Frank will get to finish this turn, and he'll have 1 additional. Matt will have 2 more turns to try to close things out. The only player I think that can actually win the game here is Frank, and it would involve him taking a knockout this turn, and then Matt not finding another Pokemon to put down, and then Frank could sweep the field with a Sky Legends GX for a knockout.
Yeah, but it looks like he's not going to be able to here. You see he just attaches to the Cramorant and is going to search his deck for 2 cards using that Beak Catch ability, or attack rather.
Yeah, and I mean, Cramorant is definitely in the deck for the Spit Shot attack, being able to do that 160 snipe, but the fact that it has Beak Catch actually just makes the card super cool and way more useful, honestly, especially when you consider the fact that you can use it for free with a Mew with Dimension Valley.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just those little things that just make the cards actually, make cards so much better. Looks like, yeah, those dice will be representing there that Frank will have turn 2 while Matt will have turns 1 and 3. Don't really think there's a way out for either player here.
Yeah, I don't think Matt can win. I don't think, if Frank, like I said, had taken a knockout last turn, maybe something could have happened for him. But with only having 1 turn remaining and 4 Pokemon in play for Matt, it's not going to happen for Frank.
Yeah, so unfortunately, it looks like this match will end in a tie. Players are playing it out just in case. Of course, as we saw last game with the situation with Frank, they know their decks better than we do. They know their outs better than we do. Something could, happen. Something could go wrong. But I have to imagine that this game is going to end in a tie.
I mean, honestly, from Matt's side of the field, he should play this out because you never know. I mean, Frank does have 1 more turn. If your opponent makes another big error, like Frank did with an illegal deck search and gets an escalated prize penalty, you could theoretically win from that, where you take 1 prize here, your opponent is escalated to a quad prize penalty, and then you win the game. So
yeah, that's definitely, you got to play to all your outs here when you're playing at such a high stakes tournament, such a high leverage situation for both of these players.
For sure.
But Matt going to continue on, just kind of, you know, playing as if time wasn't called, building up his resources, just saying, if there's anything you can do, I don't want you to be able to do it. I want to set up this Alolan Muck. I want to set up this Silent Lab. I just want to be able to prevent you from doing anything you can.
Yeah, and you got to think that if this game were to play out, Matt's in a really good position, but as it stands, oh yeah, Frank can't even play the teammates because nothing was knocked out.
Yeah, no knockouts there. Teammates actually just cannot be played, so it goes back to Frank's hand.
Yep. We will see the Float Stone to at least move the Cramorant. Dimension Valley comes in play.
Valley. Energy on the Mew now.
And if he finds that Stealthy Hood, he can attack with the Mew here, which would, of course, negate the power of Alchemy from Alolan Muck. And he is still behind on prizes, so Counter Energy is live.
And this is Frank's last turn of the game. Again, you see the number 2 by his GX marker. This is a second turn. So he will not have a way to actually win the game here. So now he's just playing to say, okay, is there any kind of wild thing my opponent can do next turn to win? I need to try to prevent them from doing that.
Yeah, I'm playing to make sure that, I mean, at this point, he knows he can't win, so you have to make sure you play to not lose, right? Kind of what you're saying, making sure that you don't leave any options open for your opponent. And Frank will go ahead and pass. Matt will be turn 3 of time. This is the last turn of the game, and I think they're realizing, yep, we'll just attack here, and that is...
There's the handshake.